The Biden era begins with calls for unity. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News, Dale Butland, Democratic strategist, and Clarence Mingo, former Franklin County auditor. It was a uniquely normal presidential inauguration, unique in that it was sparsely attended and very heavily guarded. Normal in that President Biden restored the tradition of trying to heal division after a bitter election. While the inaugural stage was the same, the scene was certainly different. Fear of COVID spread prevented all but VIPs from attending the ceremony. Tens of thousands of flags replaced the usual tens of thousands of spectators on the Washington Mall. National Guard troops patrolled the perimeter, made tighter because of the recent insurrection. Kamala Harris became the nation's first woman vice president, the first vice president of color. Then Joe Biden took the oath as the nation's 46th president and promised to work with supporters and opponents to end an uncivil war.
We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause.
Jeb Butland, you've witnessed more than your share of inaugurations, I'm sure. How does this one compare to others you've seen?
Well, you know, Mike, a lot of presidents have come into office amid crises of various kinds. Lincoln, of course, had a nation coming apart. Wilson had to deal with the global pandemic. Roosevelt had the Great Depression, and race relations were terrible when Lyndon Johnson took office. But no president in American history has taken office with so many crises all happening at the same time, to say nothing of the attempted coup just 2 weeks ago at the very Capitol building where he was sworn in. So Joe Biden was under a lot of pressure, and I think most everyone agrees that he met the moment with probably the best and most inspiring speech of his long career. As you said in the lead into this, his main theme, of course, was unity, which is hard to argue with when the Capitol looks like an armed camp, ringed by 25,000 troops and razor wire around the fences. But here's the thing about unity. It can't be achieved unilaterally. So if Republicans truly want unity, I think a good first step would be to repudiate their big lie that Joe Biden stole the election through massive voter fraud, which they've told so often that even now, polls say a third of the country and 75% of Republican voters still believe that Biden's election was illegitimate. So if Republicans truly want unity, let them start by finally telling the truth with just 11 words. The election wasn't stolen, and Joe Biden won fair and square.
Clarence Mingo, Mitch McConnell last week on the floor of the Senate basically said what Dale was asking him to do, that the insurrection was wrong, and he laid it at the feet of Donald Trump. Many Republicans after the speech were, again, echoing those calls for unity. How serious are those calls for unity on both the Democratic side and the Republican side in trying to work together in the next months and years?
Yeah, I mean, what happened on January 6th is likely the most historical moment of my 48 years of experience in America. Republicans, in large part, are now awake, and we really need to go on a national campaign to repudiate everything that happened on January 6th and to message within our own party, most importantly, but also nationally, that Joe Biden's election was valid and that we as Republicans and the American people now have a duty to get behind him and debate with civility as appropriate and otherwise get down to the business of healing the nation. I don't think Republicans can afford to spend a single minute naming political enemies versus acknowledging and taking responsibility for the disaster that's really constituted the last 4 years and and most especially January 6th. So we've got a lot of work to do. And it must be said, that work is not partisan. That work has to be about America, and it has to be done with sincerity, and it has to start right now.
Laura Bischoff, has the calls for unity filtered down to Ohio elected leaders, both the ones that serve in Washington and the ones that serve here in Columbus?
Well, what's interesting is Ohio Republican Party Chairwoman Jane Timken issued a statement saying that the party is committed to the peaceful transfer of power. And she was a major supporter of President Trump. And I think that, you hear Governor DeWine saying, he wants to work with the Biden administration for the benefit of Ohio. I think that there's a honeymoon period at this point. But I'm not sure that talk of unity and a honeymoon is going to have a lasting impact. I think that the country is still so deeply divided. It's going to be hard to repair.
Dale Butlin, the unity honeymoon could end as early as next week if the impeachment trial begins. It's expected to maybe not be pushed back until February, but it could begin as early as this coming week. Is impeachment going to just put an erasure on all of what Biden said? The trial against Donald Trump, is that just going to ruin any spirit of cooperation and bipartisanship?
Well, Mike, it shouldn't. Look, no president wants to start his term with a trial of his predecessor. There's lots of stuff that needs to be done and needs to be done quickly with regard to COVID, with regard to getting his nominees for his cabinet approved and so on. But even though he's no longer in office, it's critical, in my view, that Trump be held accountable. If for no other reason than letting him get away with it, with letting him get away with inciting an insurrection, will virtually ensure that it's going to happen again. So let's be honest here. If inciting an attempted coup and a violent attack against Congress and the Capitol building itself is not an impeachable offense, please tell me what the hell is.
Clarence Mingo, should the president he can't be removed anymore, the former president, he's out of office, but he can be precluded from running again. He could lose some of the perks that a former president has. Should the Senate convict him? Should they even hold a trial, Clarence Mingo?
Yeah, I mean, listen, my background is that of a lawyer, and I don't mean this to be cliche, but I am absolutely for the rule of law. And that phrase has more meaning now to the average American than ever before. I cannot think of another circumstance that an American president could commit that would constitute conduct on the path towards impeachment. So I'm supportive of Speaker Pelosi's thoughts about this impeachment and think there is plenty of evidence that the United States Senate can point to suggest the president is culpable or responsible, if you will, in part for the events that occurred on January 6th. Let me quickly add one other thing, Mike. It is difficult for me to talk about what happened on January 6th purely in the context of politics, because the United States government very well could have collapsed under the weight of those events. And I've got a 14 and 15-year-old girl and girls, and I cannot speak of this merely from the standpoint of politics, because the consequence of January 6th could have transcended the field of politics and really impacted all of our lives in ways that, if we have taken note of history, we should all appreciate in all fear because of the disastrous results that could have ensued. So this is not a political issue for me. It's well beyond that.
The insurrection at the Capitol prompted this week's warnings of armed marches at the State House and other state capitals around the country. Protesters came to downtown Columbus armed, but there were not very many of them, and they remained peaceful. Some 36 right-wing activists turned out on Sunday. Some continued false claims the election was stolen. Others vowed to fight for their individual rights. Watching them were scores of state troopers and National Guard soldiers, and also Black Lives Matter protesters were there as well. Laura Bischoff, it was very heavily guarded, lots of troopers, lots of National Guard troops there, police officers, but you were there. It seemed to be just a plain old protest.
Yeah, I mean, they had the Bugaloo boys and some other guys dressed up as militia people and the Black Lives Matters counter protesters. Some of them were carrying rifles and sidearms, but that is not unusual to see at protests at the State House. It was really unusual, though, to see such a huge, forceful presence by the patrol and by the guard, and military vehicles, parked on the sidewalk. At some point it seemed like there was troopers every 10 feet. And I really think that had there not been such a giant show of force, maybe more protesters would have been emboldened to come down to the State House. And the concern is what happens after that massive turnout by the patrol and by the National Guard is dialed back.
Yeah, they were there in some form through Wednesday, through Inauguration Day, and then things started to open up again. Laura, why the need to carry those large assault-style weapons? Did they explain why they're bringing them? I don't know if they were loaded or not, or fully had ammunition in them, but it just seems they could get their message across without the weapons, but they obviously don't think so.
Well, I mean, they have a Second Amendment right to carry them, so that's their right under the Constitution, and as well as the First Amendment to say what they want to say, and I think that in itself is the point of carrying it.
Clarence Mingo, does this faction become sort of the picture of the Republican Party now? Is that a fear?
Well, it certainly is a fear, and it's one that I fear. Mainstream Republicans are going to be slow to push back on. There is a huge divide between rural America and urban America, and Ohio is dominated by rural counties. And while we all respect citizens of those counties just as much as we do citizens in the urban counties, we certainly have to take note, and there's been a reluctance to do so because of the conservative white male constituency that appears at some of these demonstrations to condemn them. What protesters did in the wake of George Floyd's death, those protesters, to the extent that it was violence, they were taken to task, and they should have been, and the violence should have been repudiated at the highest levels. Well, likewise here, we need Republican legislators, most especially, who come from these urban counties, to begin giving voice to the images and the behaviors that express white nationalism or that are designed to intimidate. And I, as an African American, I have to stand strong and be vocal about a behavior around civil rights that is less than peaceful, and I've done that. My white brethren, who are Republican from rural counties, they need to do the same, and it's their voice we need on this. And my hope is that many more step up than currently have.
Deb Butler, what do you think happens here? Do these folks disappear? Do they fade away now that Trump is faded away for now anyway? Do they go underground? I mean, a lot of people say these folks have been there the whole time. It's just that Trump gave them license to come out and be more visible. What do you think happens to the far right fringe, these groups, the Boogaloo Boys, the Proud Boys, that kind of stuff?
I don't think they go away at all. And as you say, Mike, we've always had a certain percentage of our population, going back to the founding of the country, that by any definition is certifiably crazy. What is different is that Donald Trump allowed them to come out of the shadows. I want to make a comment, if I may, about something that Laura had said earlier about, and you asked, Mike, why do these people carry their guns to the State House? Yeah, we have a Second Amendment in this country, but not every right that we have, we don't exercise every right we have all the time because it's not prudent. And let's be honest, the only reason somebody would bring a firearm, particularly an assault weapon, to a protest at the State House is to intimidate people. That's the purpose of the gun. And I think it is time, as Clarence just said a moment ago, that so-called moderates in this state begin to call this stuff out. Ohio has 12 Republican congressmen, and on January 6th, 4 of them, a full third of the delegation, joined a majority of the House Republican caucus in voting against the election results, and they did it after the Capitol attack that killed 5 people and could have easily led to the deaths of Vice President Pence and a host of their fellow congresspeople. So it is long past time that the so-called moderates stop giving these folks a pass and call them out for their lies and their un-American behavior.
All right. The Jerome Schottenstein Center has seen many a memorable basketball and hockey shot over the years. Well, this week the shot featured shots that will save lives. 100-year-old Helen Fourmet, dressed, of course, in her scarlet and gray, was the first to get the vaccine on the concourse of the Schottenstein Center. This was the first week regular people ages 80 and over started getting the vaccine. Next week, those 75 and over will be eligible, but still the system is proving to be troublesome. There is still a shortage of vaccines, and this week a Columbus pharmacy company admitted that it had to throw away some 900 doses because it didn't meet refrigeration standards. Laura Bischoff, Ohio is now giving the vaccine to, quote, regular people, not just first responders and healthcare workers, but it's still some problems. How did this week's distribution go?
Well, it kind of depends on if you talk to somebody who actually got their shot or the person who was frustrated because they weren't able to schedule an appointment online. Ohio is going with a decentralized approach where you can get your vaccination through the public health department or through your healthcare provider or these various clinics, maybe through CVS or Kroger. But you have to keep going online and seeing who's got appointments and can you get it. And for some people, it's enormously time consuming and frustrating. I think that the governor opted for this decentralized approach over states that just kind of threw open the doors like Florida. And they had, long lines of elderly people camped out in lawn chairs outside for hours on end. That's not a good look either. So far, I think about 500,000 Ohioans have received their first dose, and that represents about 4 to 4.5% of the population. Yeah, it's just a lot slower than anticipated.
Yeah, we're about a month in, right, Laura? When did we start getting them? It was mid-December when the vaccines were made available.
Right, I think it was like a week before Christmas.
Yeah, 900 doses had to be thrown out. Do we know what happened there? Were they too hot? Were they too cold? It's 900 doses. That's 900 people.
Yeah, I think it was this group called Specialty RX, and they failed to actually monitor to make sure that the temperatures were held at the correct level, and then found out that the doses, it was like 890 doses, were not viable. And you think about these vaccines and how each of those doses is just so precious to everybody. It's like liquid gold just going down the drain.
Yeah. Dale Butlin, the governor said he was infuriated by the loss of doses. You have to figure that 900 is terrible with so few out there. You have to figure that is going to happen with the hundreds of millions of doses we're trying to put out there. Joe Biden's tone is definitely different, more science focused. He's got a plan right off the bat. Do you expect things to improve in the next few weeks?
Well, hopefully in the next few weeks. I mean, I think what we're finding out is that when Biden walked into office, the cupboard was pretty bare in terms of any sort of national plan for vaccine distribution. Biden laid out a 200-page plan yesterday. Clearly, we're going to have to get the federal government more involved. We have a national crisis that has to be met with a national solution. We can't leave this to 50 different states with 50 different plans. When you look at all the countries around the world that have done a better job than we have, the one thing they all have in common is they all have a national plan. So that's what we have to do here. And hopefully this is going to get better fast. Biden's promised to put 100 million vaccines in arms in the first 100 days. It's going to be a tall order, but assuming we can get the vaccines we need and we can get a federal plan to get the distribution done so that maybe we have federal centers where people go to get their vaccines. But clearly we got to do a better job than we're doing right now, because at this rate, it would take years to get everybody vaccinated.
Clarence Mingo, is it too late to do a national plan now? I mean, we've got this plan. The Trump administration had everything filtered down to the locals. Now we're going to try to redo it. Is that going to, if that's what has to be done, that has to be what has to be done. But it could take months just to get that up and going, and then we start over again, I guess in some ways.
Yeah, I don't know, Mike, that it's ever too late to plan. And I think we all agree that the federal government's involvement at a very complex administrative level is the key ingredient here. But if I'm Joe Biden's team, I would really be certainly expressing confidence as the president has, but I would also temper expectations. I listened very carefully to the president's inaugural speech and post speeches, and noted the 100 million vaccinations in 100 days. And look, I'm a veteran of the Gulf War, student of military history, and I can't think of one plan of battle that was executed flawlessly without delay and interruptions that were foreseeable and unforeseeable. So my point is simply this, that the expectations simply have to be tempered. We haven't done this in almost 100 years or over 100 years or so, and vaccinating 300 million people is a complex undertaking. The expectations have to be tempered, and there's no harm in saying that. There's no harm in saying 50 million people in 100 days. That's, by some estimations, a more realistic probability versus 100 million in 100 days.
Although they've been saying now that we are, right now, the rate is close to 1 million vaccinations a day, 900,000 or so. So 100 million in 100 days might be within the wheelhouse, might even be a little low, according to some critics. Anyway, our last topic. The city of Columbus is looking to tighten up its police body camera system. City officials this week announced a new system that will improve recording and storage of body cam footage and allow for the cameras to turn on automatically when an officer leaves the cruiser. This follows the death of Andre Hill, the unarmed black man who was fatally shot by a Columbus police officer who had not activated his camera until after the shooting. The city also wants to legally require officers to administer first aid, something officers did not do after Hill was shot. Clarence Mingle, we'll get to the cameras in a moment, but what does it say when the city has to legally require, as a matter of the city code, police officers administer first aid right away?
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to a history and a history that's now become a tradition of not fully respecting, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, not fully respecting the loss of life or the injury of citizens in police custody. This entire episode, very unfortunate, but also reflective of an unwillingness to be accountable. This reflects an institution unwilling to be accountable for the conduct of some of its members. And we've talked about the Republican Party needing to step up and be accountable. I'm sure later on in the year, I'll have occasion to say that about the Democrats. But let me say it about law enforcement. Listen, we salute, respect, and we prize law enforcement, and we esteem them. But it's okay to acknowledge that problems have existed, systemic problems, and they have yet to be resolved. And this initiative should be applauded as a remedy that the city has undertaken, and law enforcement should be following suit and owning the responsibility of holding itself accountable for a continued pattern of failures around African Americans and police brutality.
Yeah, Butland, having the cameras turn on as soon as an officer leaves the cruiser, it seems like it makes sense. The police union has to agree to it. Do you think they will, and do you think the city should play hardball with them?
Yes and yes. I think the police unions should certainly accept this because it makes perfect sense. Look, having a body camera that only works when it's turned on manually doesn't help very much when, as happened in the case of Andre Hill here in Columbus, neither the officer who shot him nor his partner had their cameras turned on. So a camera that automatically turns on when the police officer leaves his or her cruiser makes absolutely perfect sense. And I want to align myself with the remarks that Clarence made a moment ago. Look, I've supported police throughout my entire career. I was actively involved in protecting their union bargaining rights during the campaign to repeal Senate Bill 5 a few years ago. But after all that's happened this past year, in particular, from George Floyd to Andre Hill, it's crystal clear that we've got to redouble our efforts to weed out bad cops and to do everything we can to hold police accountable for questionable shootings, especially with regard to people of color.
All right, it's time now for our final off-the-record parting shots, and we'll start with Clarence Mingo.
Wishing the new president well and look forward to a better year of unity.
All right, Dale Butlin.
The impeachment fate of Donald Trump lays entirely in the hands of one man, and that's Mitch McConnell. If McConnell votes for conviction, he'll bring enough Republicans with him to ensure that it happens. But McConnell's decision will rest almost entirely on how big a liability he believes Trump will be, especially to the GOP's chances of winning control of the Senate next year and making Mitch McConnell the majority leader again. So if you want to know whether Donald Trump will ever run for president again, don't listen to him. Keep your eye on Mitch McConnell.
And Laura Bischoff, final comment.
Yeah, unemployment fraud is so rampant that even false claims were made in the names of Mike and Fran DeWine and John Husted. Ohioans should watch their mailbox for 1099s heading out to 1.7 million people. If you get one of those tax forms saying that you received unemployment and you didn't, it's very likely that you were a victim of the fraud.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah.
All right, my off-the-record comment. It was a tough loss for the Browns on Sunday, but they can take some solace in that they may have helped keep the peace at the State House. Word from the protesters was that many of their colleagues stayed home to watch the Browns game, and those who were there left early so they could get home to see kickoff. So there you go. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week and stay safe.